Alchemy is one of the most important arts in developing our soul, right? It is a study of where we came from, who we are, and what our life purpose is, what we're doing here, right? This is a Manly P. Hall lecture that he shared that pretty much explained how esoteric alchemy is pretty much um, how people can just basically use the sciences to advance the betterment of humankind, right? Now, in the traditional sense, alchemy was used as a way of pretty much taking elements and using formulas to basically turn elements into gold, right? So in the old days, alchemists were persecuted pretty heavily if they were, discovered to have secret knowledge to turn elements into gold. Because you have to think in the old days where gold and silver was used as currency, if the alchemists found, ways to turn the common element into gold, then that would kind of disrupt the whole market in terms of money, right? In a way, it's like a guy just discovered how to make money in the old days, right? So in the general sense, in the old days, alchemy was kind of known as a way to turn any element into gold, right? With that idea. And through those years, alchemists wrote books, wrote formulas in order to gradually get better at the process of turning any element into gold. That was the goal of turning any element into gold, right? And it was a strong belief that it was in fact possible. A lot of people did believe that you could in fact take any element and turn it into gold if you had the right formula and you had the right process, right? So in a sense, that's what pretty much esoteric alchemy is about. That in the same way, there's different elements, there's many different human beings in the world, and we all have the ability to turn into the highest version of ourselves, which is gold. That's pretty much what it is. Now, alchemy is pretty much about, taking everything that we know, all that we know to this point, and using it to better humankind and to gradually get better through that process. And what I mean by that is in the old days when the alchemists were developing formulas to turn any element into gold, if they didn't figure it out, and a lot of times they weren't able to figure it out completely, they would write down all the advancements they had made, right? Put it in a book, and that way the next generation of alchemists could continue their work and continue using all that knowledge that they already knew to continue the process of making gold, right? So that was basically the whole general idea of alchemy, to literally get better at turning any element into gold and taking everything they knew in order to do this. And if they didn't complete it in their generation, they'd write down all the information so that the next generation of alchemists could use that information to help further the advancement of turning any element into gold. And in a way, this idea of esoteric alchemy is pretty much the same thing, where we have all this knowledge that we have. We're using this knowledge to the betterment of humankind, to improve humankind through generation and generation. And even if we're not able to figure it all out, right? Because let's be honest, when you study ancient cultures and traditions, a lot of them didn't have it figured out in terms of karma, in terms of reincarnation, in terms of how the universe works. And we still don't have it figured out. But it wasn't necessarily a failure. They wrote down everything they could understand, put it into a book, and passed on the torch so that the new generation could continue that work. Now, that really is the goal for humankind, to really take all that information, even if we're not able to figure everything out, to literally compile all that information, use it for the betterment of humankind. And even if we don't have it solved in this generation, we pass on the torch to the next generation to further the advancement of the human race and to make the world a better place overall. So in general, the alchemy of the soul is to really discover where we came from, who we are and where we're going, right? Where it's literally that as human souls, we all have divine purpose. We have different methods in which we achieve that said purpose, right? For example, some people are here to make other people laugh. And in that sense, they're really talented in that respect. And that's the way they make people grow. Some people were born a little bit more aggressive, not in a violent, evil way, in a way where they're aggressive enough to push people to do certain things, possibly to push people to be better versions of themselves. So that's generally the idea of alchemy, where you have all types of different people, all types of different personalities, in the same way where you have different elements, and each person has their own tool set in order to further the advancement of humankind, to use their tool set for the good and the betterment of humanity, to further the advancement of humankind, and to pretty much help human souls evolve into the highest version of themselves or goal. That's all bullshit. Just thoughts.